Welcome to News with a View. Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. We're about 10 minutes late in starting the show tonight. Technical issues. The wife? All right. Today is August 18th, 2026. It's approximately 9:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Going to talk about some shenanigans going on in Alaska. I think most of you have heard about that. In the race there seems to be two Dan Sullivans running. One is the senator, and the other is Dan J. Sullivan, who just appeared out of nowhere and decided to run. Well, he didn't appear out of nowhere. This has been going on. This controversy has been going on for a couple of months, and on whether or not Dan J. Sullivan would be allowed to be on the ballot. And the idea that he had to fight to be on the ballot, and even though he's a Democrat, and he might be a fringe DSA, not sure. But he certainly had the right to be on the ballot. I mean, I don't understand where the legal fight, because they had the same first name and last name. So one's going to be, Daniel S., and the other's going to be, Daniel J. And the voters are going to have to differentiate between who is who. But the question is lingering, was Mr. Sullivan approached by the Democratic anyone to run as a means of siphoning votes away from the, Republican? And I thought it was, if it was it was the agenda that this individual is truly disingenuous in running. But I don't even know if that is, even was an argument. I mean, I want to run. I don't care what you think I am. I can run. So the courts agreed and said that you have to differentiate their names on the ballot by using their middle initials and and such. If it was a contrived act by the Democrats, well, bravo to them. Bravo to them. It was it's clever. And being a person who doesn't really believe in coincidences, I got to look at this, with a jaundiced eye and go, But the fact that the court said, hey, he has every right to be on the ballot if he so chooses. And again, Alaska's a lot of these crazy things where everyone can be on the ballot and it goes by votes. And I say crazy in the sense that it went contrary to the way we normally had done things. Not all the time, but where, you have primaries, you had two opponents. Now you get lumped in the people that stand out in it, get the most down the line, and they weed out the other opponents. You've seen what has happened in a lot of these races where they get the primary people, like the DSA, got the vote out. They did a fantastic job in Michigan of getting their people out. And in Michigan, of course, for Al Saeed, you had, of course, one of the largest Muslim populations in the United States living in Michigan. And the citizens there, the Islamic community, they vote. They vote. They use their right to vote. And so you can almost expect probably a 90% turnout there of the Islamic voters, and mostly for someone, El Said. They're going to get the vote out, and of that 90%, I'd say 88% are going to vote for this, for Said. So they pushed the Democrat out that might have stood a chance of defeating, a Republican challenge, and now it's not. Michigan is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Wisconsin saw that with Hong, and in Alaska, it might be a little different because the Democrat that's running is a known entity. So, not so. It just became interesting because two people with the same name running. And again, I'd like to find out if this person was approached by anyone to run, or said, "Hey, listen, if you run, it could take votes away, and that could just give us what we need to win." It truly does become disingenuous and done more so to game the system. But how, you'd have to have proof. You'd have to have someone that came forward and go, "Yeah, we reached out. We had a meeting at Denny's, and we talked about this, and we said, wouldn't it be great if we could find someone to do this and siphon away votes?" Because all we need is 2 or 3, not even 2 or 3%. We just need 0.5% going the other way, and we're in. So, in the case of the Sullivans in Alaska, it's interesting. I'm glad the courts did not say, "Hey, Daniel J. Sullivan couldn't run because of having the same name as another candidate." Yeah, it should never have even had to go to court for that. I find that, a bit, that should make everyone stand up and look and go, "Yeah, no, this is America. Just because you have the same name, yeah, you're going to have to figure out a workaround." But he's a citizen. He's allowed to run. He has nothing going on that would stop him, via the state laws on voting. Have at it. Have at it. What I do see happening inside the Democratic Party now, again, and I've said this before, it is a revolution. There is a civil war going on inside the Democratic Party. More so than, the Democrats want to really admit. In the Republican Party, you have what I call the quiet riot going on. Hey, listen, there are Republicans reaching out to the inner circle surrounding President Trump and going, "Listen, we understand, but we don't want him jumping in too deep here in some of these states. Let us battle it out, and when it gets tough in October, we'll call in the big guns. But in the meantime, back off." And of course, Trump doesn't do that. That's just not how he plays in the sandbox. So I call that the quiet riot. But there is a civil war, and it's very vocal in the Democratic Party. And they can only blame themselves for allowing the socialists into their big tent. And they could go all they want. Well, everyone has a voice and we want everyone. Well, then invite the Republicans into it. Oh, no, we can't do that. So, I mean, it was just so foolishly done by the Democrats that you just have to wonder what the hell is going on inside the Democratic Party. Jeffries, had to come out and go, no, healthcare for everyone, no. That's not what the Democrats really want. We want healthcare for everyone that's eligible for it. And I mean, that's how he should have. I mean, who is steering these guys to say healthcare for everyone is a very vague term? I could be giving healthcare to people that live in France then, if that's what you're saying. But if you said, we believe that people should have access to healthcare who are eligible, but they don't want to get cornered to go, well, who's eligible? Well, now, you got to put dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and they don't want to do that. They've already been painted into a corner. And how do they expect to win if they can't carry the moderate Democratic vote? And you might have some people that turn around and they go, well, we got a Democrat in there, and the moderate Democrats are going to hold their nose and vote for them. No, like in Wisconsin, this is what they're hoping with David Crowley, that he knocked out Hong, and now the Democrats can go, whew, we got a Democrat there, and we'll hang all our hopes on him. And in the meantime, the people are going to turn around and say, no, he didn't have enough support walking into the race. And you're going to have you're going to have the socialists going, we're not going to vote for him. We're just not going to vote for him. And it's going to be hard for the Democratic people to go, no, it's better we have a Democrat in there than a Republican. And they go, no, we had the person. We had Hong. She was going to do that. She was going to be the person. And you guys derailed it. Yeah. And that's going to be a huge problem. I mean, you see the, crazy Lieutenant Governor Penny Flanagan in Minnesota. Lieutenant Governor who, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna do this, and then she goes, well, the fraud, that's all in Tim Walz. But Lieutenant Governor, you were in a lot of these meetings. You were second in charge. Are you telling me you never heard about any of this? Where? How did the Democrats think they were going to retake the Senate or retake Congress? They started with all their, again, we're going to redistrict everything. And they go, all right, fine, redistrict. Well, this is how we're going to do it. And the Republicans have a good chance of picking up seats. And Democrats, have lost it. Now you have, Debbie Wasserman in Florida, who decided she's going to run in an all-black district because her district was nullified. And now she's taking over. And, well, her district wasn't nullified. It was expanded into this area and into a predominantly black area. And they're, now she's coming up with a new definition of what representation means. This is how splintered the Democrats are. And I get the idea, if you're going to say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. But that's not the case in politics. because you have to have an agenda. You have to have a plan. You have to have something. You can't just wing it. What happened in Wisconsin with Crowley stepping back into the race less than a month after he pulled himself out of the race. And then when everything fell apart for Democrats, he jumped back in and he won. He won in the primary. It's just mind-boggling that how lost the Democrats are. And you have, Schumer running around. And, I said it before, he's now the fool on the hill. And he can't control. He has no control anymore. Jeffries, again, a guy that was thrusted in there by Pelosi, shoehorned into that position. And he couldn't carry New York for the Democrats, and the Socialists pushed him out of the primaries where he was supporting the Democratic candidates. So what does that tell you? It's not a matter of, we figured the polling out wrong, or, we didn't read the tea leaves correctly. No, they had no plan. They had no plan. Their plan was, we're Democrats. No one's going to, And, Mamdani was a kind of fluke type of thing for New York. Because you had, Adams, all the problems he had. And he just couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. And you had Mario Cuomo. You had ex-Governor Cuomo come running in, and he goes, I'm going to run for mayor of New York. And people go, no, you had to leave office as governor. And, there's still the death of 50,000 New Yorkers in nursing homes. The stench of their death is still permeating around you. Yeah, we don't want anything to do with you. And, Sliwa running as the Republican, because there was no one else. No one wanted to be, even the Democrats, really, honestly, didn't want to be on the sinking ship, which is New York City. And you have Hochul, who, she's disgusting. She's disgusting. She's a disgusting human being. And I can only hope that the Republicans the Republican who's running, who comes from Long Island, can win. I don't think he can, because the Democrats are just so entrenched upstate New York. Downstate is one thing. And of course, Long Island, huge population there. Don't underestimate Long Island and Westchester and Putnam and Yonkers. But you start getting upstate New York, and the upstate New Yorkers don't like anyone from Long Island because, hold it. I'm in Syracuse, and I'm paying taxes that are going for the Long Island Railroad. Or I'm from Buffalo, and I'm paying for the New York City Metro line, the subways. Yeah, no, I don't want any of you guys, because you guys just mean higher taxes. So New York is a very, it's an interesting voter demographic and a mindset. I would love to see New York turn red. And it's happened. But I don't know if they can do it. You don't know. The circumstances going on in New York is interesting. The circumstances happening in a lot of states. And take, for instance, South Carolina here. We had Darlene Graham and Ralph Norman. Yeah, Ralph Norman, who is has a good chance of winning because he's a congressman, but he doesn't have the backing of President Trump, who gave his backing to Darlene Graham, the sister of Lindsey Graham. The problem is we're having now a special runoff August 21st. And tonight, they had a debate, and it was horrible. It was absolutely shambles. It was... and we don't know, or myself, as a Republican, as a conservative, and I said I'm not MAGA. I believe in the Constitution. I just don't know enough about her to go. I don't go in and just pull the lever red. I do not, and I'm not an independent. I'm a Republican, Federalist. A lot of Federalists are independents. I am not. And I don't know enough about Darlene Graham to say, yeah, is she just there to be a rubber stamp yes? But I don't want that either. I want you to have a conviction to doing, having the majority of my wants and agendas for me to get to vote for you. I don't need 100%. I need 51% to get me across the line. And the fact that, days after Lindsey Graham's death, Trump turns around, I want the sister to finish up his term. And then when the question came about, well, what happens if she wants to run for the... Oh, I'd support her. Well, then you had other people. You had Russell Fry, and who I said, I like Russell Fry. I've met Russell Fry. I agree with Russell Fry. I didn't think he had enough tenure yet to jump into the senator spot, whereas Ralph Norman certainly has the experience and tenure to do that. Also his field of voters is much greater than that of Russell Fry. And of course, Darlene Graham, who knew her? I mean, yeah, we knew Lindsey Graham had a sister, and he talked about her and stuff, but... And if she goes, well, I'm going to support everything my brother supported. Okay. You give me the reason why you're going to support that. And if she reads off a cue card that everything that Lindsey Graham had said, I'm going to be suspect. I want your spin on it. Why don't you like the Soviet Union? Why are you anti China? Why are you in these positions? Because if you're going to take your brother's positions, you better have his knowledge and understanding of what's going on. And Lindsey Graham had, years. And I've said before on my podcast, wasn't a great fan of his. He was a real politician. And, whatever the wind blew. So wasn't a huge fan of his, but I'd take him over a Democrat any day of the week, mostly down here. So our problem in South Carolina is that, the president's going to come in and give a rah-rah speech for Darlene Graham, and, Mr. President, I respect you. I support your administration. On this one, you should be a little hands-off. And I can understand people going, well, you weren't that way when he went into Kentucky. You weren't that way when he went into, Louisiana. I'm going to say you're right. I'm not going to say you're wrong. And that's not the case. So, but here, a little bit different. People in South Carolina have a little different mindset. And, we're close enough to the north and have a lot of northerners here, me included. And we left the politics north of the border. And we want to make sure it kind of stays that way. We're conservative in nature. And, I'm glad Tim Scott hasn't gotten involved in it to say, I throw my, support. No, he's going to say, hey, listen, this is a Senate race. Let them battle it out, and then after the primaries, we can figure it out. And if the president was just looking for a yes stamp, well, basically, he had that with Russell Fry in Congress and Ralph Norman in Congress. Ralph Norman, maybe even more. Yeah, it has a history of supporting President Trump. And, okay, now, yes, we need all the red senators we can get. But, now who's going to take his spot in... He wins. Let's say he wins. And he goes on the ballot. And, of course, we know Republicans going to win that seat come election time for the Senate seat. And if Ralph Norman, well, who's going to take his seat? And I realized that Darlene Graham was a safe bet for Trump because, and I keep two loyalists in Congress, and I need those loyalists in Congress because, if Congress goes blue, they're going to impeach, they're going to do all this, and I need people in there that I could depend on. Of course, if the Senate stays red, it's going to be, a moot issue, but, depending on what the charges of it are and the proof and everything else. Listen, there could be stuff that we have no idea about. Don't know what I don't know. But when you hear, people like Waters and Al Green, who thank God he's going to be gone, who just said from the beginning, we're going to impeach him from day one. I mean, and you had the Attorney General in New York, James, who just said, well, just show me the guy, and I'll find a crime that he did. And you go, well, no, that wasn't personal, or that wasn't weaponization of her position. That's what she ran on. I'm going to get Trump. No proof, no nothing. Then she goes, I'll find it. And this is what the Democrats are hinging themselves on, and they're already split. You haven't heard a word out of Shapiro. You haven't heard much out of Gavin Newsom. You haven't heard a lot from DeSantis. The only Democrat that's saying stuff that's getting any type of play is John Fetterman. Because he is opposed to the socialist agenda. And you could have people on both sides saying, yeah, well, because, the socialists are anti-Israel. And John Fetterman is pro-Israel. And you could make that claim, and it would be a truthful claim. John Fetterman is pro-Israel. I'm pro-Israel. I'm a Republican. John Fetterman is a Democrat. What's the problem? And you could be opposed to Israel, but if there's more people supporting Israel than are not supporting it, you might have a hard time winning an election. And I'm not talking about governors or anything like that, which, play very little on the national front. It makes for headlines, but and could it be a jumping off point? How many governors ended up president? I mean, you could say a lot. You could say a lot. Because if you could lead a state like New York, if you could lead a state like California, Florida, Texas, you know how to run stuff. If you're the moron White House out of Rhode Island, no. He doesn't stand much of a chance. Bernie Sanders. And of course, the DNC screwed Bernie Sanders. And, he goes, yeah, you're going to see what I can do. And that's the other problem with dealing with the socialists. If the Democrats think they're going to show any loyalty towards the Democrats, they're crazy. They're crazy. The first things, these socialists and communists do is get rid of the people that helped them get into the office and power because they know how to do it. They might get me out of power, so I'm going to eliminate them. I'm going to take them out of the picture just as a matter of safety. And this is what people don't realize. They just don't realize. The Democrats are so blind to it. And you have a lot of Democrats that have no idea how the government functions or policies, and they go, well, that's just wrong. Yeah. Do you know how it works? Do you know why this is being done this way or why this was set up this way? Nope. They have no idea. And I'm not going to say Republicans are any better in that light in a lot of cases. I said it before and I'll say it again. You have 28% of any of these parties that no matter who's running, they're going to vote for. That's Democrats or Republicans or communists or whatever. They're going to vote. And then you have your push-along voters. They're looking, and you can get them there. And then you have the people that are on the fence. And we've seen how important that is in these races. Hey, Hong in Wisconsin lost by 0.5 point. And really the only reason I think Crowley won is because the outgoing governor threw his support for the Democrat, not the Socialist. And that carried a lot of weight to the Democratic voters. And do I, again, like I said with Crowley, do I think he's going to win? No, I do not think he's going to win. But it just goes to show the political power people can have over the voters. Trump. You know, they go, well, he's lost key people. He wanted Pam Everett in South Carolina, you know, for the governor. Gone. She didn't win. And when it started going against her in the polls, you know, he said, well, I like this other guy too. You know, I mean, but Trump has probably won about 70% of the time he goes and supports someone, they'll win. And even if it's 50%, that's a pretty good numbers. You know, it's not baseball, but if you have a 500 average in baseball, you're going right to the top. So, but the shenanigans that the Democrats are going to start pulling, and they're going to start pulling it against the Socialists. And you're going to see a lot of the Democrats secretly going, hey, this guy's going to hurt you. Don't vote. If you can't vote for a Republican, or if you're going to go in there, just don't vote for the left. There could be a third person in there that only got, 2% or something. Toss it that way. If you can't vote for a Republican, or if you can't do it, don't vote at all. The money that, the fundraising by the DNC, I mean, has been crippled by Harris and by the Socialists. You think big business is going to back the DNC who backed the Socialists? You think that's going to happen? Maybe in some crazy part of the business world, they'll do that thinking that we'll get some self-preservation here. You're not going to get that. That's not going to happen. And so what are they doing? Playing it very close. Yeah, I know last year we gave you $50 million. This year, you're only going to get $5 million. Because the wind's not blowing in your direction. And the wind we are getting from your direction really smells bad. So, but we don't want to say we're just walking away from you. And we're not going to give the $45 million to a Republican. We're just going to keep it in-house, and we'll see what happens. And the DNC is hemorrhaging money. And supporters. The people that want to support the DNC are going, what are you doing? What were you thinking when all this was going on? No one thought about this? No one saw what was going on over here? You didn't think how this was going to be played out by the Republicans? And wait till all this primary stuff is over with, and it's going to be over with. And then you're going to see the guns come out. And the Republicans are just going to be shooting money into commercials. Boom, 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 boom. And repeating every word that the Socialists have said. And the Democrats, who have nothing to do with, hey, that's them and that's not me, they're going to be painted with the same brush. Because they're going to say, it is a hive mindset with the Democrats. embracing socialism. It's a mindset. And we're going to follow whatever the queen bee tells us to do. And you're going to say, well, the same thing with, with the Republicans. Not so much. Not so much. Yes, you'll have, like I said, you'll have Republicans that just blindly go after it. But then you're going to have a lot of Republicans like me. And there's a lot of me out there. So I got to have some substance here. This is my worry here. And how are you going to address that? All right. So basically, that was my shenanigans, which is going on in Alaska with the Sullivans, which is real interesting. And like I've said, if that was a idea by the Democrats to siphon away votes, very clever. I like clever. But if they went to him, and this guy, Daniel J. Sullivan, is not really doing it to win, but doing it to siphon votes away, then he is disingenuous, and that should be exposed too. So it's interesting which is going on in Alaska, which should not have been an in-play type of state, but because you had Sullivan that has brought billions of dollars into Alaska. Not hundreds of millions of dollars, but billions, and not just a few billions. I think Alaska would be well served by Senator Dan Sullivan. All right, everyone, thank you. It is now 10:22, 43 minutes, basically, of me up here talking till my throat is sore. I might do a show tomorrow, depends. I have to see. I said yesterday I would do one at 9:30. I got it up at 9:40. Again, I blame the wifey. She wouldn't vacate my studio, so what can I do? Being held hostage here. All right, everyone. Be well, be safe. It's been hot here in South Carolina. I'm sure it's hot anywhere up and down the East Coast, and of course inland. Everyone, be well, be safe. Please give to a charity if you can. Just make sure that charity is a bona fide charity. Don't become a victim helping a victim. Well, don't become a victim trying to help a victim. All right. Give to a local food bank. It helps locally for the most part, and they could use food. They could use monetary donations too. And again, check it out. There's plenty of excellent food bank programs out there that help people. Say a prayer. Prayer does work. And you just got to know with prayer. You got to look and have your eyes open for the answer. That's all I can tell you. It's not going to plop down in your hands, but it will be made so you could see it. And if you ignore it, yeah. So, and with that, everyone, be safe, be well, be happy. And I'll do that as I fade to